this Sunday webinar. You are all acquainted with the academic programs of Philosophy family, which have been organized for the last one
Mahana sir, Mahana sir.
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Niranjan sir joined. Niranjan sir joined now.
Okay.
Should we go with him?
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Speak. Friends, today we have two sessions with two eminent professors with us. In the first session, we have with us Professor Niranjan Padhi, and the second session we have with us Professor Indu Pandey Khundrima of HNB Gorwal Central University, Uttarakhand. In the first session, it's my pride privilege to bow down my head before two senior teachers of philosophy. In the first session, our theme is the philosophy of humanistic culture. It will be delivered by Professor Niranjan Padhi. Professor Niranjan Padhi is a retired professor of philosophy. He is a prolific writer, popular orator, and eminent columnist who has contributed more than 100 articles to the children's magazines, and he has also contributed more than 400 articles to different newspapers, journals, and other proceedings. Most of his writings are based on the reflective thoughts on the degradation of human values. Many of his articles are based on humanist culture, which is meant to establish the cycle of love and goodness in society, to purify human mind and to purify the society. Professor Niranjan Padhi is a regular columnist of a number of daily newspapers in which he has continued to propagate the humanistic values. Professor Padhi is a lover of philosophy of Vivekananda, which has been reflected in many of his articles and speeches. To his credits, Professor Padhi has more than 15 number of books which have been published by different eminent publishing houses of our country, which include his creative essays, poems, stories, and humors, and critical thinking on different social issues. Professor Padhi is a very popular speaker of her state. Each of his speech reflects the moral values and the ethical promotion of all groups. Professor Padhi has been felicitated by different educational institutions, cultural forums, social forums for his contribution to philosophy, culture, and promotion of human values. Professor Padhi has delivered more than 500 talks in different forums. All his speeches carry the ethical promotion of human values, and he raises his voice against the social injustice that is seen in today's life of people and society. I do not want to reflect upon all his contribution to the academic world, to the literary world. He is a very prolific teacher and promising writer, and who believes in the humanistic values and promotion of human culture. I welcome Professor Niranjan Padhi to deliver his speech on philosophy of humanistic culture. Today we have with us Professor Pramod Kumar Das, the admin and host of Philosophy Family. He is the man behind the all kinds of the philosophical reflection, philosophical promotion in the Philosophy Family. We have with us Professor Dr. K. Omnaran Rao. He will be moderating the next part of the program. I welcome Dr. Rao. Once again, I welcome all the senior teachers, scholars, and students of philosophy across the country. With this, I welcome Professor Niranjan Padhi to commence his speech. Over to Professor Padhi. Sir, pranam. Sir, pranam, sir. Sir, pranam. Pramod, sir.
Sir, please unmute, sir. Padhi, sir, please unmute. Unmute yourself, sir. Your microphone is off. Padhi, sir, you are not audible. Your microphone is off. Please put on. Yes, now. Okay.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
Sir, pranam, sir.
You're
Sir,
audible.
pranam, sir.
Pranam. You see, good evening to all. I must make it clear that I am so backward a man that I don't have enough knowledge on the exercise of this digital functioning. But it's really a pleasure for me to be in the Philosophy Family. And for last 2 years, as you know, that we are going through a very bad time of the universe when a pandemic like COVID-19 has really killed not so many members of this world, but also it has taken away many opportunities and occasions from us to make our physical exercise. But I am convinced that although it has taken away many more things, but it has also gifted us with some opportunities like this, when the Philosophy Family has been expanded to an enviable dimension, of course with the active patronization and active involvement of three young persons of philosophy world or Philosophy Family of our state, that is Professor Pramod Das, Dr. K. Omnaran Rao, and Dr. Kailash Maharana. The connectivities between this trio makes a triangle to make the world of philosophy too expanded to the satisfaction of all of us, the lovers of philosophy. The topic I have chosen is the philosophy of humanistic culture. And I love to discuss on this subject because as a prolific to put light on these issues, that when our diminishing cultural values in the society, a challenge for all of us, those who want to live in a composite society with our own individuality untouched. But the irony is, we do not know how the concept of culture has really touched all of us as a social being. Every human society is guided and governed by two basic social laws. One is civilization and another is culture. Civilization means it is a flowing, it is just like flowing water, and it goes on changing. But culture is something, because of its moral bearing, it has become an unchanged and unchangeable proposition for the human society. And this, take for example, suppose the food we eat, we may vary the different types of food, but that food supplements us to live longer, live further. That is an inherent proposition, and it can never be changed. Likewise, the dress code, and over the period of time, over the ultra-modern approach to the human society, or the way we are living, our dress code has been changed a lot. But that the minimum, the basic principle of using a dress just for the respect of the minimum modesty of not getting nude is the culture. Civilization is, we'll go on changing different dresses, different codes of dresses, but that we will put on dresses, that has become an inherent culture with the human society, because it also bears the moral obligation, moral responsibility to make the human beings different from the rest of the animals, that we are not nude, or we cannot present ourselves before the rest of the world in a nude and naked position. So we have to put on the dresses, and that is the culture. So that is the difference between civilization and culture. Civilization is always changing, but culture is unchanged, rather unchangeable. So how we are going to link it to our philosophy? Philosophy is a way of life, and as a process of thought that governs a true, rational, refined soul, it is going beyond our taking the true definition of the culture. Swami Vivekananda, in his historic parliament address in the Chicago Parliament of Religion, he has really given a new dimension to the age-old traditions of religions. For the first time, he let the rest of the globe know that there is something like humanism. When the religion was previously, and much to the much acceptable alternatives, the religion was previously God-centric. But for the first time, Swami Vivekananda from India, who represented India, the Hinduism, the Sanatana Hindu Dharma in the Parliament of Religion, he proved it, he founded it, and he established it, that there can be also a religion that is man-centric and which revolves around the human concept and the human culture. So that what is then that? Man-centric religion, how is it different from God-centric religion? God-centric religion, probably it's when God centers around all the concepts of religion, all the religious beliefs, all the religious rituals, all these things. But Vivekananda always puts stress that it is something that God, when it is unseen, and we have not tested really that how can empirically God be established, that whether he exists or not, that is a different issue. But we can also make spiritualism our humanist culture by living with our fellow person, we are fellow beings. That man is born definitely alone. He is born all to a mother, to a father, and to a family. But when he wants to live, he wants to promote his life to an acceptable range, he has to take help of other fellow persons to live, because he has to rely on the food that is supplied by a farmer. He has to educate himself depending upon a teacher. He has to treat his ailments depending on the doctor, and so on and so forth. There are so many communities in this world, in this society, and when that makes a composite society, only when one is bound to depend on others. But he forgets, man has become so selfish, and this consumeristic approach to life has made a human being so alienated from the rest of the society that he thinks that I am living for myself and I don't have to look after others. But if you refuse to look after others, others will also refuse to look after you. And then what will follow? Then men will become alienated, and male will become so distant from others that he cannot feed his stomach, he cannot take an education, he cannot get the treatment from a doctor. So it is just a barter relation in the society that our culture develops and improves. It is because of the barter relation that a doctor should not think that I am someone who is above a farmer, because a doctor takes pain to discharge his responsibility as a doctor in treating the patient, and the patient may so happen he is a farmer or the son of a farmer. And in exchange, when a doctor treats a patient, the patient or the patient's father or the patient's son, he may be a father, he may be a farmer, he may be a teacher, he may be an engineer, or he may be as a businessman who, in exchange of the duties of discharged by the doctor, also pays it back to him in a way and in the means by his own profession. So that is a barter relation, and one has to depend upon others without thinking that I am the final, I am the complete. So to me, a human being is always incomplete without the aid and help of others. But the language of humanistic culture always starts with we, not I. Vasudhaivam Kutumbakam has been preached to us by our ritual, by our Vedas, by our Upanishads, or by the religious practice and traditions. We have found that a man can be an individual man, and at the same time also can be an universal man. An individual man, so far as he has a family, he has a father, he has a mother, he has a son, or something like it is so confined, so narrow, that is family. But beyond that family, he has also a society, and he is largely dependent upon society, which is constituted beyond the range of his family. And that is the spirit of Vasudhaivam Kutumbakam, where the individual life or the universal life the universal life rules over the individual life. And the complete human world, and one is a person or the conglomeration or the aggregate of some persons doesn't make a society. It is their interdependence, interreliability, and it is their respect to each other that makes the society complete. So when the barters, like our barter system in economics, as you know, that when there was no business of this commercial texture of money or something like that, people used to give dal in order to bring back rice, or people used to give coconut in order to bring back this oil, all these things. Likewise, our society that becomes a cultural society only when a people gets something in exchange of something he gives to others. So, but the irony of materialistic life now we have become advanced, and we have become so advanced that we forget the basic norms of the human living. It is an irony that, as I remember, that T.S. Eliot has once told that I search for life, but life is lost in living. I search for wisdom, wisdom is lost in knowledge, and I search for knowledge, knowledge is lost in information. So this is the most advanced life, as we tell, as we claim. But where we live, but we are living just for living, not for the life. So the definition of life and the definition of living, they fall apart. Considering the treatment of life a person gets into just by living an individual life, not with an universal life. But what happens? That has a tremendous impact on our own life and own style of living, of course. You see that how now the present day is so complicated a world that here a person is not responsible for his own pain and pleasure. You see, a man is unhappy not because what he doesn't have, but because what others have it. That is very irony, that is very peculiar. A mother, even if his son gets flogged in an examination for 3 consecutive times, She is not that worried. She is not that unhappy. Yes, my son has failed. So what? But the moment he finds that the neighbor's son has passed in a single chance, and that too in first division, he gets he gets a peculiar taste of unhappiness. She is so doomed, so depressed. Her own son gets plucked thrice, and that has not made her unhappy. But when her neighbor's son gets passed, and in a single chance in first class, then something is hurting her, something is pinching her, and she becomes unhappy. So this is how we are unconnected. We are living in a society, but we are living in a society where I have nothing to do with my neighbor, and my neighbor has nothing to do with me. Swami Vivekananda has formulated a new definition. Rather, the definition of human gets redefined there when he holds that every man is potentially divine. Among not only that, every man is potential. The divinity, intrinsic ingredient of human spirit is divinity. That is what he has proved later. But what he has proved earlier is that a man is always incomplete without the help of others. And these traditions of getting into a society just with another person hand in hand, that makes a man universal man. Not an too much of selfishness and consumeristic attitude that puts us behind. That is not giving us the true taste of life. And you see, that also happens in our own. I will remember that in the primitive the old days, what the persons was doing, what the human beings are doing when the civilization has not yet improved. Then a person was collecting his food by snatching away from another person who has attained it or who has earned it. Suppose I have earned some food, and by applying one's force, because the law of the jungle, as is told, that the survival of the fittest, that I will apply my force to snatch away the food collected by someone else. So that is known as Vikruti. That is rather a perversion, or that is what an animal. A human being is more an animal than a human being when he doesn't have a respect for others' earning or others' food, and he snatches it forcefully. And the second stage, when a man has been improved in the man has been rational to his own civilized spirit, what he does, now he collects food for himself, but he becomes apathetic that whether his neighbor or his other persons, they have taken food or not. So that has become it is an inherent something that has become an instinct that I am living for myself. I will collect food for myself. I don't bother that whether my neighbor or whether the passers-by, he gets food or not, whether he is hungry or not. That I have arranged food for myself and I will live. I will take it and I will live. So this is the second stage, that is known as Prabhuti. First one is Vikruti and second one is Prabhuti. But when man has become more refined, then comes Sanskriti, or that is known as culture. What is that? Now he collects food, he earns food, he gathers food. But when he finds that someone is more hungry than him, then he distributes that food or he shares the food with that hungry man, and he takes care of his stomach more than his own stomach. That is known as culture, and this culture is known as humanistic culture. When the human being is convinced that yes, I am living not for myself, I am also living for others. You see, Swami Vivekananda has given a very tough definition to be a real human being. Once he once declared that you have not become, or I call him a traitor, and you have not become a complete man when the next door dog remains unfed. Something such a tough definition to be a human being, that how am I responsible for the neighbor's dog who remains unfed? It is the duty of the neighbor to take care of the stomach of the dog. But Swami Vivekananda's rulings, rather, he established a different philosophy. No, it is also because as the Vasudha is a Kutumba, as the whole globe is your family, then the dog of your neighbor also comes under that family, and that globe and it is also your duty to see that how the dog is fed or it remains unfed. So such a difficult situation or the difficult definition to be a human being. So it is Swami Vivekananda again that the humanistic culture gives the taste of fulfilled life. You see, leave aside the philosophy of doctrine of Swami Vivekananda. Let us examine it in our own life. Suppose, with our family, we have gone to a hotel, a continental hotel, rather a star hotel, and had some continental bit of dishes, some longer dinner. And while coming back from the hotel, by putting 100 rupees bakshish to the waiting and saluting gate man, we found that there is a beggar who had been hungry for the last 2 to 3 days. And he appealed your humanity, he appealed your good sense to take care of him and to give him some food so that he can eat it after 2 long days of his hunger. So you were compassionate and took him to just a dhaba nearby and asked the dhaba owner to give him a full meal. And that meal costs you to pay only 50 rupees. So after getting that 50 rupees meal, when the beggar, the hungry beggar, who has not been fed for last 2 days, the happy smile in his face, or when he feels satisfied that after 48 hours I could take some food for me, and that is given to me by someone who spent 50 rupees for me. And that pleasure of the beggar, it just stretches its limb to touch you. And after putting 4,000 rupees to pay in the Continental Star Hotel, what sort of pleasure you have got, and just by putting 50 rupees, by arranging a food for the beggar, hungry beggar, what sort of peace or pleasure you get, that really makes the difference between our individual and universal life. Individual life, it supports your stomach, it supports your family at best and at length, it supports your family. You can be happy by seeing your family members happy. But it is really an universal life, and you enjoy it when you see others, those who are not your family members, but still they belong to the total world family, globe family, or Vasudha. Then, and if an unhappy man gets his happiness back with your help, then you feel also very complete and very fulfilled, and that is known as the pleasure one gets by exercising the humanistic culture. So living for others is the basic the theory of the humanistic culture, when I treat that I am living because others are living. If others, they don't get a chance to live, then I am also equally hurt. As it is a composite system, as the whole body, and as we have also studied it in logic and philosophy, that when our small nail gets hot, the entire body gets pain. We should always try to understand that if a fellow countryman or someone who is even not known to me, but he feels hurt, then I also cannot live in peace. He is hurt will definitely make me hurt. So when I hurt someone, that is something different. But if someone is hurt and I am competent, I am really qualified to see that, to minimize her feelings, minimize his pain, then I feel complete and I feel really I am living an universal life. But the question is, what does one really get? As a student of English, or all my learned audience, listeners like you all, you must be convinced that there are some points where all the languages, they have a very limited role to express your own feelings. That the person who has put 50 rupees to feed the stomach of that hungry beggar, he doesn't take help of any language to express his pleasure, that what sort of feelings he has when he sees that the hungry beggar feels so happy. So it is, the language becomes very, very poor, very weak, and you cannot take help of any language to describe your feeling, that what you really inculcate, you get while seeing others happy. An unhappy person's And I remember there is a very good poem in English literature that I used to teach my children while they were in their schools. That is known as the poem is Abu Ben Adam. Abu Ben Adam was he was a man, and he doesn't believe in God. Rather, he doesn't get chance to go to the church. But he was also doing something that is not humanly, that is more godly. How is it? Now, he was trying to help those who are really very helpless, who are very destitute. He doesn't have a house of his own, but he will take all possible care to see that no one becomes houseless. So he is such a man. So once while coming back after performing all his service duties for the fellow man, when he came back to his house, and in a very wretched condition, he was living under a very thin roof. So he found that there is someone in the corner. He started writing. He starts writing something, and he wanted to know, who are you? How is it that you are in my room and you are writing something? So the person replied, I am an angel, and I am a special emissary of the divine authority, that is God, to compile the list of all those whom God loves, who love God. First was who love God. So Abu Ben Adam he was interested to know that whether his name figures in that list or not. He wanted to. He asked, I said, well, you see, whether my name figures there or not. Mind it, that the angel was then compiling the list of all those who love God. So knowing very well that he doesn't have time or scope to love God, he still asked that see whether my name figures there. And with a very ridicule, the angel replied, no, here your name said, there is no name like Abu Ben Adam in the list. And Abu Ben Adam, he wanted to convince himself, yes, it's all right. I don't have any time to go to the church. I don't have a time to remember God. So it is quite natural that my name doesn't figure in the list. So the day passed, and the other night, he found again the angel comes and again starts writing something. And he didn't have any interest to ask him that what he is writing of. He wanted to take a nap. When he went to his bed to take a sleep, from his own side, the angel asked that, Mr. Abu, don't you want to understand, don't you know, but don't you have any interest to know what I am now presently writing of? The Abu Ben Adam then replied, no, I don't know, but at least I am convinced that you must be doing something quite related to your divine world. And I don't have that interest, so you please write, and you, after finishing your job, you just you leave me and let me sleep. So the angel again disturbed him by saying, Abu, I am compiling the list of all those whom God loves. The other day I was compiling the list of who love God, but now I am compiling the list of all those who God loves. So Abu Ben Adam said, yes, I am convinced that you are doing another divine job, but the thing is, I am not such a fool to expect that when my name didn't cover that list, or that doesn't come under that list, who love God, what business God has got to love me? So I don't expect that my name will figure in the today's compilation. But by just with a startling remark, with rather a very mysterious smile in his face, the angel told, you are so fortunate, Abu, that today's list, the first name that comes in my list is none other than you, Abu Ben Adam. So it is you who figures in the first list of persons whom God loves. You see the equation. A person who doesn't have time, who is not connected in any way with the divine Lord, but divine Lord has got all business to remember him, and not only to remember him, to keep him in the first position of whom he loves, or whom the Lord loves. So that is probably the result of the humanistic culture, but it is known as humanistic spirituality, and that is known as man-centric religion. So what Vivekananda once formulated, that God is far beyond my concept of religion, because my concept of religion always revolves around human being and human beings only. So how can you become a human being? Another instance, once I had written it in my article, one of the articles that in my columns, I used to write 15 days fortnightly columns in a newspaper. So once I have written also that the experience I have gathered from one of my friends, that a person who was coming from Delhi in a train, he suffered a massive heart attack and went in coma. So the fellow passengers, he wanted that to get rid of the patient or to help the patient in this way only, to board him down in a station, the coming railway station, and give his responsibility to the station master, telling him, asking him to take him to the hospital. So a passenger was there, was a co-passenger who was running there. He was also traveling in the same compartment with his wife and his daughter. His daughter was only 12 years old, and they were to go to a distant place like Tata from Delhi. And the person who suffers the heart attack, he was coming to Orissa from Bhubaneswar or Cuttack, something like that, Mr. Mishra. And there a person, a co-passenger whose name was Mr. Sinha. So Sinha asked his wife, can you do one thing? You will just alight at the station, our station, and taking the daughter, you go to our house, but I cannot accompany you. The wife, he was astonished. Why? What are you doing? Why you are not going to accompany us? You are also accompanying here at the station. When we will go down, you will be there also with us. So no, I am going to take. I am going to go down. I am going to get down in the next railway station. And because why? Because no one is going to help this man. And a person who is going to the responsibility of the station master, a station master will simply ask the ambulance or call for an ambulance, and the ambulance will take him without any attendant to the hospital, and God knows what will happen to him. So you please go all alone, and I am getting down with this patient, and I will take care of it. I will at least take all possible steps to get him hospitalized and try to treat him. So the wife consented, and the next station, Mr. Sinha get down from the train with Mr. Mishra, who has suffered a heart attack. And then after 1 to 2 days, when Mr. Mishra was all right, he asked him, where I am? You have suffered a heart attack, and who are you then? I am just a fellow passenger running in your compartment, and I take it as my duty to hospitalize you because your condition was so serious, and no passenger I found that they are interested to take care of you. So I have to do that. Now that you are all right, and we both will go back, I will get down in my own station, and you go to your own state of Odisha. So then it was a peculiar experience. Mr. Mishra came back to his place. His wife was happy. Their family members were happy to get him back. But one thing has, the wife noticed a very peculiar strange thing with him, and he refused to go to the puja room. Previously, he was going to the puja room and performing all this ritualistic puja for at least half an hour. But then he found that since you have come back from Delhi, you are not going to puja room. What happens to you? So Mr. Mishra, he gives a very peculiar answer to her, reply to his wife. You see, I was taking God as a celestial God, as a divine God. And for last so many years, for 30 years or more, I was habituated, I was accustomed to give a half an hour puja in this puja room without seeing that even an inch has been used by God to come closer to me. Nor I am able to go closer to the God. But when I realize that God is not in this puja room, God also becomes co-passenger with you, and God also travels with you in shape of Mr. Sinha in Nilachal Express. I am convinced that I don't have any business in this puja room. Rather, this sort of humanistic culture that Sinha has told me, I want to spend the rest part of my life with this culture and with this definition of divinity that God is not in the heaven, God also travels in the train like Mr. Sinha. So my point of contention that I wanted to bring to the notice of the learned listeners of today's evening is that something, when God becomes a distant proposition, only human beings becomes closer to each other and thereby preach a doctrine of humanistic culture that gives the shape a most refined and probably most acceptable way of spiritualism. Because when we say Gandhi has also told the same thing. Gandhi, why with his non-violence, truth, sarvodaya, all these concepts, they center around one thing, one basic culture. And what is that culture? Na bahujana hitaya. The thing that is beneficial for everybody or for a major section of people, that should be accepted as your own philosophy. And by expertising or by practicing the humanistic culture, we always do that. And I believe that while in course of discussing all these things with you, my learned listeners, and the persons who make the philosophy family very proud in the whole, I don't think that other departments are there, like history, political science, English, or I don't have any knowledge of that, whether they are doing or not. But I am always proud to be an ex-student of philosophy and ex-faculty of philosophy, that with this trio, like Mr. K. Narayan Rao, Mr. Pramod Das, Mr. Palash Maharana, and they get this family so expanded with their active participation, with this active spirit, that it can make us closer to each other and share our feelings. One thing I wish to conclude my talk by throwing a test of introspection to my learned listeners with a sort of, suppose, so to speak, to demonstrate a point of contention in form of this, on the theme of this humanistic culture. Because I am a writer, I always try to put some anecdotes that has been given to us by our folk tales. Different folk tales are there. A person was going in the street and he finds that there is a, he feels hot, he gets hot while he just by a stone that was there in the middle of the road. So he got so annoyed, so irritated that someone has thrown a stone in the middle of the street. Let me make it more close. Let me take this stone closer to the road so that other people will get hurt like me, and I should not be only one to get hurt. Why should I? So let other people also get wounded and get hurt. So what he does, he takes the stone to the exact central point of the middle of the road, so that other people, travelers, other passers-by, they will also be wounded. The second person comes. He was so happy and so busy with his own world, he doesn't bother that what happens. Yes, there is a stone. It may hurt me, so I must try to avoid it. He just jumps over it and goes on his own way, without being caring to see that whether other persons may got hurt or not. So he's so apathetic that he doesn't have time to think of others. The third person comes. He says, "Yes, here is a problem. Here, there, it may hurt someone. I can overcome it. But some persons like me, he may be wounded, he may be hurt. So let me do one thing." What he does, he picks the stone and throws it to a very good distance from the road. And these three types of persons in our world, in our community of human community, you can always find these types of persons. Those who goes by the tradition of getting pleasure by giving others pain, and those who get pleasure gives pain, and that is confined within themselves, and those who gets pain and tries to avoid pain for themselves, but their mission is to bring pleasure for others. My evening will become definitely meaningful for me when I find that my learned friends from the philosophy family will at least choose the track so that they can be proud of one thing, that at least philosophy has taught them to become a human being and to so refined that they believe that God will definitely cannot make a distance like Abu Ben Adam. I may make distance from God, but God cannot afford to make distance from me. Thank you all. Namaskar.
So much, sir, for your excellent talk on the theme philosophy of humanistic culture. Sir, today you have really honored us with your excellent presentation on this scheduled topic, and you have made a very conceptual clarification of all the points that you have included in your speech, and you have made how there is a degradation of human values to animality, and sometimes you have also shown how humanity is transformed into the divinity. And we have no time for further the discussion now. I would like to request Professor Dr. K. Omnan Rao to invite other professors to interact with Professor Niranjan Padhi. Over to Professor Rao for moderating the session.
Sir, should we go with the next talk or should we carry the interaction now?
Then and we have to take the permission of Professor Niranjan Padhi whether he wants to remain present in this or want to leave. Sir,
I'll be happy if there is a point of discussion on my points, so that I have some other domestic assignments. I can attend to that.
Then Professor Rao, please invite the other professor to interact.
Okay. Namaskar, everybody. Well, it was a wonderful talk that reflected on the humanistic culture, a sort of spiritualistic humanism that Professor Padhi talked about. He took very good examples to suggest how human beings are potentially divine, and most often we fail to say this. We spend time on wondering, searching for an invisible God, forgetting that that God is present all around in different shapes and forms, and we overlook that. So it's a great message that if you are serving human beings around, if you are serving plants or the creatures around, you are serving God. And very nicely has said, he talked about Adam, where he said that he never had time for loving God, but God loved him because of his service to human beings, all because of service to the creation. So that's how it brings his talk, what Professor Padhi talked of, it defines of a sort of a spiritualistic humanism, and that is possible, very much possible. Now we invite professors present here to make their observations on the talk of Professor Padhi. Well, we have with us Professors Ranjit Ghosh, Professor Alok Tandon, and many others. If they want to make some observations, well, I see Dr. Alok Tandon, sir, he wants to say something, make some observation. Namaskar, sir. Welcome, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Dr. Tandon.
Namaskar, ji. Namaskar, sir. Thank you very much for this sort of engagement with humanism and culture. I want to make one observation and then one or two questions. First of all, the way Professor Padhi is looking at culture is somewhat dated. The way he is looking at culture is the essentialist notion of culture, something, a discovery view of culture. The culture is to be seen being put somewhere in the past, very pristine, very pure, very solid, and it continues and it remains the same throughout history. I think this view of culture needs to be changed with the historical view of culture, which is more realistic. Take the example of Indian culture. Can we say that Indian culture, with the caste hierarchy and the patriarchy, can be said to be leading to Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam in which all the members of the family are to be treated equal. The humanistic values he is talking about have come after enlightenment. These are called the enlightenment values, which are equality, fraternity, and this all the three values: equality, fraternity, and so the humanistic view of looking at culture has evolved very late, and it has made man center of the culture. So if we continue to look at culture in a very you can say the spiritualistic way, then these values are not taken care of in culture. But this is an observation. Now the thing is, the question, okay, your intentions are very good. You are quoting Vivekananda, Gandhi, etc., etc. But the question is, why human beings are so selfish, or they are becoming more selfish? And if you say, as you say, that it is the consumerist way of living has led to the selfishness of human beings, so how can we not think about bringing in humanistic culture without changing the development model, which is the capitalist model of society, in which one person is in competition with the other? And this sort of model inevitably leads to a sort of selfishness, competition, hate, and that type of helping others and taking care of others is not possible. So the whole contradiction between the being human and being successful is to be looked into, unless and until we cannot talk about any sort of humanistic culture to develop in our society. Thank you.
Over to Professor Padhi to respond. Sir, you want to respond to what Professor Tandon has raised? Professor Padhi. Padhi, sir. Well, I don't see Professor.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Tell me, sir. Hello.
Yes, sir. You're audible, sir. Please tell.
No, I fail to understand his question. Hello.
Yes.
Sir, Dr. Rao, please clarify the question to Dr. Padhi.
Dr. Tandon, he places a proposition. How can the capitalistic world, where there is competition, the modern society, the modern world, can be made consistent with your approach of culture? What I could learn from Dr. Tandon, the modern society where we live in, with a lot of competition, lot of selfish attitudes, all there in this society, in the modern world, how can your idea be compatible with this modern society, and how can that will help mankind in doing things better, in making things better?
It's very. Hello, am I audible? Am I audible?
Sir, audible,
Yes, sir.
sir, audible.
Yes, sir.
Audible.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are very much audible, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. Now, my point of contention is that when a person feels the necessity that he cannot go all alone while living a life, he cannot go all alone. He may have enough money, but money is just not sufficient. You see, the COVID period has already testified it. It's established it that we have enough of money, but we don't even if to satisfy our desire to have a piece of bara, we are not able because the shop is closed. Suppose I have money, even if the affluence, the people with a high degree of affluence, they also need that the help of someone, not money, because money cannot be instrumental in meeting all his needs, because he needs men, not money. So when he needs men, he has to take help of the society, where he can find a man to help him. He may have some enough money, but that affluence, that modern approach to life with money cannot solve his problems. Very often that comes. Suppose, take for example, suppose he gets the service of a car to reach the hospital, or the doctor at his door and call. He cannot summon him to come to him. He has to go to the hospital, and for that he needs the service of a driver. So if he looks down upon the driver, that he is a backward person of the society, I am a frontliner, he is a backliner, then who will take him to the hospital? So this approach of life, even if he becomes so modern, so affluent, and having so much things at his disposal, he cannot meet all his needs satisfied unless and until he has earned men, not money. So one has to earn men more than he wants to earn money. That is what my point of submission to Dr. Tandon, that yes, even if we are exposed to the outer world, to the modern world, to this consumeristic life, but still we should convince ourselves that it is not always fair and safe, whether it is not always possible to serve myself by the way of my own lifestyle or my modern approach to life. I need someone to be with me, and that someone I can find or I can pick up from the human society by exhibiting this humanistic culture. Thank you.
Hello.
So one thing comes from the response of Professor Niranjan Padhi is that material life will never ensure happiness. If at all we wish to ensure happiness, we have to find happiness in society, in interaction with the fellow human beings or the fellow beings all around. So this is what Professor Padhi responds. Well, we have Srinivasan Krishnamurthy. Well, sir,
Yes.
welcome, sir.
Sir, namaste.
Sir, carry on, sir. Carry on, sir. Well, his connectivity is lost, I feel. Srinivasan, sir.
It was an awesome and
audible.
excellent presentation.
Carry on.
No, it's not audible.
Hello?
Srinivasan, sir. Yes, sir. Carry on, sir.
It's audible?
Now audible, sir. Carry on, sir.
Okay. So I noted 2 points. The first point is Mr. Sinha helping Mr. Mishra in the train. He really accelerated the human value there. Manusharu Pena Brahma. Okay. The second point is the human value got decelerated. That is because of the mechanism of the government officials, and those who are running the governance of the train have miserably failed to provide a doctor and a nurse in the train itself to save the golden hour, so that the patient could have been saved on that date, on that point itself. That they have to contemplate and introduce this kind of emergency requirements of the traveling people. That would be very, very helpful for them also. Thank you very much for your nice presentation, sir.
I request Professor Ghosh, Dr. Ghosh to make his own observations. Welcome, sir. Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Dr. Rao. It is definitely a nice presentation, in the sense that we always think and move around the philosophy circle. We talk about humanism of different varieties. We talk about integral humanism, radical humanism, secular humanism, different type of humanism that we discuss in theory. But here is a presentation where I found that Professor Padhi has given us certain case studies, which are the examples, brightest examples of the humanistic values. And we can name this as practical humanism. Because you see, the humanism wants the human beings to become human, 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 that is kind and merciful. So these values actually are observed in our lives more often than not, but hardly we make any serious notice to these situations. Because as philosophers, we should collect the situations which we come across in our lives, day-to-day lives, and these things actually give us the philosophy of the humanistic culture. So this is what I feel, that it is a form of practical humanism that he is talking about. I don't find anywhere the coinage of this practical humanism. But here is a situation where we find a practical humanism. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for your nice observation. Well, very nicely coined that it's practical humanism, because the examples that Professor Padhi took, they define of the possibility, human possibility of understanding each other, living together in peace and harmony. Well, Professor Padhi, do you want to say something, to add something to what Professor Ghosh has said? Professor Padhi, do you want to add something more?
Yes. No, simply, hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible, sir.
I would like to express my gratitude to all the senior faculty members or senior, they are not simply, they are my elder brothers, Professor Ghosh, Tandon sir, and Sebastian, another gentleman outside Odisha. They all have supplemented me to my points so nicely that I simply would like to express my gratefulness, and really it's an occasion to get inspired, which Professor Ghosh has rightly observed, that whatever I have made it a point it contains less of philosophy, more of practical sociological dimension of these issues. So I always insist upon one thing, that let our philosophy be just not be confined within the academic discipline. It should be extended where it is able to touch our practical dimension and in our day-to-day life, how our philosophy makes us more refined or makes us better to handle all the situations that may come up in days to come. Thank you. I am really grateful to all those who have made their nice observations and supplemented my text of content. Thank you all.
So last question would be from a question in the chat box. It is by Shravani Misra. She raises a question: why at all there are laws? Why at all there are norms? Why at all there are regulations for human beings? Why do we require laws at all? Why do we require regulations? Why do we require rules? Because maybe why at all? This is the question that she intelligently raises. Why this is needed?
No, because I feel a human being, every human being is first an animal, and more than humanistic culture, we are very much prone to get attracted towards the animalistic passions, and just to make cut short, or just to rationalize us, we need some rulings, some regulations, some norms, some ethical standards, and more so some that comes from within. That is our conscience. That is known as viveka, which is there only possible in case of a human being, not with animals. So we are different from animals from that aspect only. And whenever we tend to go sided with these animalistic passions, there are these norms, there are rules, there are regulations. They just whip on us that don't forget that you are a human being. Do this that is doable, and don't do that which are undoable. And that is what in this way I can submit that probably in our system, the human constitution, we need these rules, regulations, norms, ethics, moral standard, because the whole business is to just to rationalize us from our animalistic derailment. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to remind us of one thing: the spirit of enlightenment during the period of enlightenment. That can be summarized by saying that if you want to be a philosopher, be a human being first. So
Yes.
this was the spirit of the enlightenment, and which has given us this picture very clearly that we have to think in the rational way, so that we can judge what is good and what is not good, what is beneficial and what is not beneficial. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir. Rightly said, Dr. Ghosh, rightly said. We have failed to be human beings. We have failed to realize we are human beings. We are good there are good doctors, there are good engineers, there are good professors, but they have failed to realize that they are human beings. So this is the problem. This is the moral crisis that the present day is facing. So thank you very much, Professor Ghosh, Dr. Ghosh, Dr. Padhi, Dr. Alok Tandon, Shravani Misra, and everyone who interacted, and even Srinivas Krishnamurthy, sir. And thanks, Professor Padhi, for your nice lecture, and also thank you for your responses. Now over to Dr. Kailash Chandra Mahana for carrying on the further proceedings. Over to
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Dr. Rao. With a sense of extending gratitude to Professor Niranjan Padhi, it's time to move to the second session, where our speaker, Professor Indu Khandri ma'am, is waiting. The theme of the second session is humanity across the cultural diversity. The speaker invited is Professor Indu Khandri ma'am. In the second session, let me extend my welcome to Professor.
सर मैं क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता हूँ क्या सर?
हेलो
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन मैं पूछ सकता हूँ क्या सर?
नहीं, सेकंड सेशन के बाद, सेकंड सेशन के बाद.
प्लीज
Niranjan Padhi sir, please mute yourself, sir. Niranjan Padhi sir, please mute your microphone.
Acha, if you allow me, should I leave? I have got some domestic assignments to attend.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
sir. Okay,
yes.
sir.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sir.
Thank
Namaskar,
you.
sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all.
Let me speak a few words, and Professor Indu Khandri ma'am.